Hello, this is a demonstration of some weather resources online that are useful for trip planning. We're going to be using a portal that's hosted by Alaska Ocean Observing System. It's all Alaska, but that's what I'm familiar with. And if you wanted to dig in here, you can see just a ton of different layers that are available: fish, mammals, oil and gas. I'm interested in this real-time sensors layer initially. I can open that in the portal here. These end-of-life alerts, that's just about the provider of this base layer. This is a GINA BEST satellite imagery, and they're undergoing transitions. That doesn't reflect anything about this service. So basically what this site does is pull in sensor data from all sorts of sources. So Alaska Railroad, Environment Canada, Copper Valley Telecom, NOAA, Weather Service, USGS, everything's on here. And everything is made to look the same so that it plays well. So we're looking at a temperature history or profile for the state for 1 week. This goes back to February 3rd, February 10th. And as you zoom in here, this graph on the bottom dynamically changes to reflect whatever is in the field of view. And if I click on a single sensor within this field of view, you can see that sensor's data show up as red, but I'm still, the high and the low and the mean are still exposed. So there's a lot of power here also in this plot, which I can enlarge and get a lot of detail. If I'm interested in, is the temperature ever peaking above freezing, I can come in here and get this, this information this way. Also, I can see what other sensors are available at that same location. So I can go to wind, look at a wind history, and as I move through the time slider here, my wind rose diagram shows me where that wind is coming from. So I'll just give you an example of how I've used this before. If I zoom out, I often have a week that I know I can do a trip, and I'll start planning a few trips, sort of anticipating various conditions across Alaska where the weather is all over the place. And so in one case we had a plan to do a trip out of Bethel or maybe out of Valdez to Cordova, and weren't sure which one we were going to do until the last minute. So I monitored webcams. I'm going to choose webcam from this list. Nope, that was winds, webcam. And I basically just checked these all out and looked to see what was going on the ground. They might not all work. I can make a larger image here. And in this case I was looking for an ice skating trip. So I was looking here to see if there was any snow on the ground. And there wasn't. It was ice, and it looked like great ice. So then I pulled up that wind sensor. There's only one wind sensor in the area. Grab that data. Looks like the wind is coming from the northwest. I can get an even better sense. It's just consistently been northwest. There was a little window there, really low knots, where it was northeast. But I used this tool to get a sense for wind direction. It was a north wind, so we plan to start in Bethel and then ice skate our way down through all of this tundra lake system outside of Bethel. So that was one case where this following the weather on this portal was a huge asset. Okay, I think that's all I'll say about this real-time sensor. So after 1 week, everything on this sensor gets pulled into a historical. I'm going to search for historical here and display it now. Oops. Okay, so same idea. All of these different sensors from all of these different sources. And then some of these will go back a couple years, but it's a ton of data. Some of these stations call or report data, every 5 seconds or something. So to pull in more than a couple years of that is pretty hard on the system, and this interface is still a little bit buggy. But I don't know. We could look at snow depth, maybe around. Let's just zoom into this Kenai Peninsula area. These are all the stations that have snow depth information. Turnagain Pass. Look at that in more detail. These peaks are, anomalous. They're probably mid-storm events where the sensor is reflecting off of snowflakes or something. But at least I can get a sense for peak snowpack, according to this sensor, was at end of February last year. And so that's useful. If I was planning a trip and I want to hit peak snow, if I don't have other data points, I can think, well, at least I should do something starting in the end of February. Okay, you can also use this for water gauges, stream heights. So if I did a run, let's see, I'm looking for stream flow. Let's say I ran a creek out here. This might be a heavy one. Okay, not bad. Let's say I ran this thing in mid-July, and I was curious if it was at a representative flow. I could come in here and see, well, there's major peaks. But yeah, for mid-July, that's probably a pretty average flow. Although that level was quite a bit higher than anything the year before. So just having a sense for the weather patterns can help me determine where I want to go as I'm planning a trip. I'll give you one more example here and pull up the NAM 12. I'm going to look at snow on here. Snow. Add it to my portal. Right now I'm showing both NAM 12 and NDFT, so I'll kill NDFT. Okay, so this one's got some data. I'm still in that Wood-Tikchik area. I'm going to change the opacity so I can see where those mountains are. So in this one, I'll zoom in a little bit further. Here's the crest of those mountains. I'll bring in the snow layer. If anything, it looks like there's a little bit of a snow shadow on the west side. So with no other information, I'd go into this thinking there's probably more snow on the west than there is on the east. Now, there's a kind of a useful tool here that's built in. I can click on the map and it will pull the model snow depth out for this whole stack of model parameters, model runs, I mean, every 6 hours. So here's what that looks like. Again, this is doing some heavy lifting because it's pulling. It's going into each slice here from 2015 to now, pulling out a value at the lat long that I just clicked on. Okay, it is worth the wait. This is pretty awesome data. Again, it's just a model, so it's probably completely wrong, but it's pretty cool to look at. Peak snow depth here, hitting 60 inches. Not as high this year yet. Not as high in February of 2015. I could do the same thing. Remembering that 60 inches, I could do the same thing over here, drop a point. This is probably going to take a long time to load up, so maybe it's not worth waiting. Okay, not so long. A little bit lower, but still hitting about 60. So maybe there's the same approximate snow depth on both sides. But I used this tool before doing the trip to try to get a sense for conditions on either side or around the Wood-Tikchiks, just because it's such a black box. I didn't have any other information about that region in Alaska. Okay. that's what I got. Hope it's useful. I don't know if there's something like this in other states. I guess I'll show one other thing that is useful. Back on that real-time sensors. Add this to the portal. Kill that that snow depth model. And even if I don't use this this portal to get the data, it's a useful source to identify where I can go to the original source. So that station is available here, ROS. I can go back to potentially 1996. So every one of these stations has that metadata associated with it. Go back to its source and try to get more more historical data that way. Hope that was helpful.